Hi, my name is Pastor Hal York, and welcome to Truth in the Trenches. Today we're going to be in James chapter 5, verses 4 through 6. We looked at verses 1 through 3 last time, and we saw where James is addressing the futility of riches, that riches will not serve you, they will not last, they're rotting, and one day they're going to stand before God and give an account for how they've lived their lives, as we all will. But now in verses 4 to 6, he's going to tell us some of the things that these rich people have been doing, which puts their eternity in jeopardy, because God knows everything that they've done and everything that they're doing, and he sees it all. So listen to what he says in verses 4 through 6. Behold, the pay of the laborers who mowed your fields and which have been withheld by you cry out against you. And the outcry of those who did the harvesting has reached the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. You have lived luxuriously on the earth and led a life of wanton pleasure. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and put to death the righteous man. He does not resist you. So these are the charges against the rich. What have they been doing? Well, he begins with the word behold, and that's a strong word. These charges deserve their utmost attention. James is saying you need to pay attention to what I'm telling you here. The things that they are doing are no small thing in the eyes of God. And these are sometimes hard things to convince rich people of, because we'll see why here in a minute. But let's look at these three charges brought against them. Verse 4, they're oppressing the poor. They're oppressing the people who've worked hard, sowing and weeding, working the land, and so on. And there's no doubt the people that are doing this, some of them no doubt, are some of the people who've been oppressed and had to leave their homes and families and jobs, and they're just taking any job that they can get. And so they're desperate. The harvest is a very joyful time, when the gathering of the crops greatly enhances the landowner's wealth. But it can also increase the owner's callousness and cruelty toward his workers. And these workers' lives depend upon their salary being honored. And these workers are at the mercy of their employer. And such a time of harvest gives opportunity for these rich people to show their true heart. These people, as I said, are probably displaced because of the persecution. They're trying to provide for their families the best that they can, and they've lost their jobs. They have no leverage. No one is going to stand up for their rights if their wages are withheld or they're wrongly paid. And the rich know this. It's sort of like hiring an illegal immigrants. If you withhold their pay, what option do they have? None. And God is very much aware of these kinds of attitudes and these kinds of things go on, and he's very much against it. Let me read three sections in the Old Testament that talk about this. Leviticus 19:13. You shall not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages of a hired worker shall not remain with you all night until the morning. Deuteronomy 24:14-15. You shall not oppress a hired worker who is poor and needy, whether he is one of your brothers or one of the sojourners who are in your land within your towns. You shall give him his wages on the same day, before the sun sets, for he is poor and counts on it, lest he cry against you to the Lord and you be guilty of sin. Then lastly, Malachi 3:5. Then I will draw near to you for judgment. I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, against the adulterers, against those who swear falsely, against those who oppress the hired worker in his wages, the widow and the fatherless, against those who thrust aside the sojourner, and do not fear me, says the Lord of hosts. Obviously, in the day and age when these things were written, there were no refrigerators, there were no freezers. Most people had to buy their food, get their food one day at a time. There was no place to store stuff for the most part. And so you basically depended on getting paid every day because you had to go buy food every day. And so to withhold wages from somebody for a day would mean that very much so that their family could very well go without food. But there's an important principle here, though, I think we need to remember. In difficult times, not everyone suffers. Some exploit the situations. It could be a hurricane, a flooding, it could be an epidemic. And all of a sudden, you're paying $20 a gallon for milk, or price gouging, gas goes up, bread necessities, the prices go up. And all to make a profit. The distress of their fellow man does not increase their compassion, it's just their corruption and selfish evil greed. And such injustices and greed does not go unnoticed by God, as we said earlier, I read earlier. God sees what they're doing. Very often, in difficult times, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And we see this culture on our cultures today. We saw it during COVID and many other instances. But they have these lavish lifestyles. They lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. Hearts, which the term suggests that their central concern in life is to indulge in the luxuries of earth and then find their satisfaction. And then we see this violence against the innocent, against the righteous person. Murder could be actually murder, but it could also mean murdering a man by depriving him of his living. But the non-resistance of the righteous confirms the guilt of the rich who remain unmoved by their suffering, which they viciously inflict upon their innocent victims. And when we read these things, we need to see what James was alluding to in James chapter 2, verses 6 and 7. You have dishonored the poor man. Are not the rich the ones who oppress you and the ones who drag you into court? Are they not the ones who blaspheme the honorable name by which you were called? And in the context of that, as we remember, is they were giving favoritism to the rich, and the poor person they were putting off in a corner somewhere. And James says the very people you were honoring are the very people that are making your life miserable. At least that class of people. And so he's very sure that they need to listen to these words and think about what they're doing. Because the rich display this attitude we find in Psalm chapter 10, verses 1 to 11. Wicked people, rich people, and not all wicked people are rich, and not all rich people are wicked. But the attitudes of the wicked are found in the poor and in the rich. But this is what it looks like. In pride, the wicked hotly pursue the afflicted. Let them be caught in the plots which they have devised. For the wicked boasts of his heart's desire, and the greedy man curses and spurns the Lord. The wicked in his haughtiness of his countenance does not seek him. All his thoughts are, there is no God. His ways prosper at all times. Your judgments are on high, out of his sight. As for all his adversaries, he snorts at them. He says to himself, I will not be moved. Throughout all generations, I will not be in adversity. His mouth is full of curses and deceit and oppression. Under his tongue is mischief and wickedness. He sits in the lurking places of the villages. In the hiding places he kills the innocent. His eyes stealthily watch for the unfortunate. He lurks in a hiding place as a lion in his lair. He lurks to catch the afflicted. He catches the afflicted when he draws him into his net. He crouches, he bows down, and the unfortunate fall by his mighty ones. He says to himself, God is forgotten. He has hidden his face. He will never see it. These verses and many others show the heart of those who oppress other people. One of the greatest tests of character, the revealer of the true condition of the heart, is not poverty, but prosperity. With prosperity comes a sense of entitlement, the feeling of being untouchable, above the law that governs society, the laws of the land, the laws of social equity and fairness. They're above accountability. They think they're able to weigh their buy out of any problems they may encounter. They're untouched by the hurt their actions inflict on others. Now, poverty is obviously a test of character as well, the condition of the heart. But there's something about prosperity that reveals a part of the human heart to show just how fallen men are. Because the more riches we acquire, the farther we push God out of our lives in many cases. And all we think about is getting more. We're never satisfied. And the rich just oppress people. They have the power to do that. And so they take advantage of it. They do that. Not all rich people are like this, obviously. There are some very godly, very good rich people who use their riches for good and treat people fairly. But if you look at the scandals in our culture, just recently, in the last 10 years, look at the corruption, the wickedness that's been perpetrated on others, and seen on the news. That it is not striking. Is it not striking how many of these people are rich? You think of the Jeffrey Epsteins and people like that, and caught up in his web. They were mostly rich people. I would say all of them were rich people, famous people, well-to-do people. If you look at the people who have been abusing others and just robbing people of inheritances and swindling people and everything else, they're rich people that are doing this. So the thing to keep in mind is this, that prosperity is not a virtue. Neither is poverty. And our prayer needs to be, May we never lose sight of those around us, whether we're rich or poor. May we never cease to be thoughtful and fair and kind and Christ-like as to what we say and what we do. May our light shine. But we also need to remember that whatever happens to us, whatever's going on in our lives, maybe we are one of these people being oppressed by rich people. Maybe we are in a country where this happens on a regular basis. Maybe we are being taken advantage of. We must never forget that God sees everything that's going on in your life, and he cares, and we need to remember that. And if you're one of those who are oppressing others around you and taking advantage of their poor status or their persecution or their setbacks in life, you need to be careful, because God sees everything you're doing as well. So there's a lot to think about in these verses, and we'll see how the believers to handle these things in their life when these things happen in verses 7 to 11, and we'll look at that next time, Lord willing. So may these truths guide us and guard us in the trenches of life as we seek to live our lives for the glory of God and the good of others. May God bless.